Nicole Healy at nhealy@carecentralvna.org. In the subject line, if you could please note violence in the workplace. And one more thing, sorry guys. Some of you might be in listen mode only. If that's the case, just so that you are aware, at the end of the week, we will email out the completed slides so that you will be able to see them. So a broad definition of workplace violence: shoving, pushing, harassing, threatening, talking, or engaging in any of these activities. This could be included in communication in person, by letter, a note, telephone, fax, email, or through social media. It is the responsibility of every employee to prevent or report workplace violence. You should always complete an incident report for any acts of threats of workplace violence and always report it to your supervisor. There is a myth among healthcare workers. Many believe that workplace violence in healthcare is just part of the job. Getting hit, pinched, slapped, or yelled at or threatened is not okay in any situation while you're working. A more formal definition of workplace violence is verbal threats and physical assaults that occur to workers while you're on duty. This can be committed by coworkers, clients, family members of clients, strangers, or even someone that you know and personally love. So, what are some of the details of it? Verbal harassment, name calling, humiliation, criticism, inappropriate sexual remarks. These can come from coworkers or patients, and they should always be reported. Verbal threats. When someone says they're going to harm you or someone else in any way, they may tell you what they would like you to do or not like you to do. They may make statements like, I'm going to get you, or you better watch your back. If you hear someone being threatened or are the victim of verbal threat, notify your supervisor immediately. Don't place yourself in a position of trying to decide if this person will actually follow through and cause harm. You should always assume that the person means to follow through, and you need to take action to protect yourself and others. Disorderly conduct. Any disruptive behavior, such as fighting, yelling, or throwing things, and continuing to do these things after you've asked them to stop. This type of behavior can cause you and others to feel unsafe and could lead to physical harm. Do not attempt to stop that person yourself. You should get yourself out and get yourself and others out of harm's way. If necessary, of course, you could always dial for 911. Slander. What's slander? When someone intends to harm the character or reputation or career of another person, it's usually a false statement or a fact about a person or someone else that causes actual harm. It may be done by current or former workers. Name calling and spreading rumors, gossip, and personal opinions are not considered slander unless they lead to harm or could cause someone to get fired for something that is untrue. Attempts to cause physical harm. I like to give an example for our clinicians that are in the field. You have a client, Mr. Williams, and he's upset because his breakfast is not ready at 8 a.m. He yells and he grabs a book from his nightstand and he throws it at you. You duck and it misses, thank goodness. This is an attempt to cause physical harm and should be reported. Actual physical harm can result in intentionally grabbing, pinching, scratching, slapping, or throwing things. You should notify your supervisor immediately, and of course, seek treatment for any bruises, breaks in your skins, or any other trauma. So other types of violence in workplace. You could have something happen committed by a stranger. Usually, most times, this would be a criminal activity. And an example of that would be a robbery is being committed. The robber doesn't have any relationship to the workplace. And during a robbery, 2 people are wounded. Type 2 could be committed by a patient or a client, a customer who becomes violent while under your care. Most threats and assaults against healthcare workers do come from patients or clients. Type 3, committed by a coworker or an employee or a past employee. This often occurs after a series of angry or hostile behaviors. There are usually warning signs that this person is unstable or capable of committing an act of violence. This is why it is important to report these behaviors to your supervisors and authorities if necessary. The next one is committed by a loved one. This conflict is an extension of domestic violence. Women are affected more often than men, and although both men and female coworkers and supervisors may end up becoming involved, these confrontations usually result in an employee's current or former spouse or significant other appearing at the workplace and creating physical harm. Again, based upon the field work and our clinicians, I think that a good example is our patients with dementia. A dementia patient may become violent, which is a symptom of the disease. The harm of a caregiver, and really there isn't any intent to harm them. There are ways that, of course, you can always protect yourself while still trying to maintain the rights and dignity of the patient. So, some suggestions are block your blows, never hit back, stay out of reach as much as you can, duck, bob, weave. Continuing with that, trying to, be able to stay conscious of an aggressive patient who may become violent. They may be yelling, they may be swearing and making threats. They're looking tense, they're, clenching their fists, they're speaking or breathing too fast, they're glaring intensely, standing too close to you, throwing objects, which then goes right into personal safety. During orientation and ongoing, we do talk about don't wear long, dangling earrings, also necklaces especially, to reduce your risk of being injured if you were ever placed in a violent situation. Avoid touching angry patients or clients unless you know from past experience that touching them is safe. Be a good role model. If you find yourself angry or aggressive because of a patient's or a client's violence, it's only going to make the situation worse. You should never tease that patient that's angry. You need to keep yourself calm. If you're upset, the aggressive person may become more violent. Always try to stand at least an arm's length away from the aggressive person. Avoid letting that person trap you in a corner from your exit of the room. And if you fear from your safety, leave the location and contact your supervisor. Again, still staying on be feeling threatened. Some steps that are important for you to follow. Quickly calmly end the interaction without making the situation worse. Tell the person you will not accept this abusive treatment. If the behavior continues, leave the location. Inform your supervisor immediately. You always need to remember, complete an incident report, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Don't allow abusive clients, patients, or coworkers to get away with threatening or abusing you. I've noted here, as we've talked about quite often over the past couple of weeks, the purple file. But for those of you who still might not be familiar with this file is for a clinician that is unable to leave the home. You can pick up the phone, call the office, hit 0 to speak to the receptionist, and tell them that you need them to pull the purple file 101, giving the patient's name and address. They will immediately notify a supervisor to make sure that we can get you assistance. Also, just adding, all of our files are in UKG, formerly known as Kronos. So what do you do if you are attacked, or, if this has happened to you? Then you need to do two things. Looking for assistance. Before we get to that point, again, I know it's a lot of repetition of what I said, but it's very, very important. You always want to try to remove yourself from the situation, get to a safe place, call for help, get medical attention if you've been physically harmed, and report the incident. At the agency here, we have an employee assistance program. It's 100% confidential. It's available to all employees and family members for assistance with many things, from substance abuse, emotional issues, and a list of others. This service or benefit is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For those of you that are in listen mode only, the phone number to call for this is 888-628-4824. Also, this is posted every month in our monthly newsletter on the very last page of the newsletter. For reference, we do have noted here our workplace violence prevention and crisis response plan. Again, all of our policies can be found in UKG. Lastly, just as a reminder, for attendance, please make sure that you email Nicole Healy at nhealy@carecentralvna.org, and in the subject line, please put violence in the workplace. Thank you all for attending, and I'm going to unmute, or you can unmute if you have any questions.
Melissa, I just wanted to add that sometimes that sexual harassment or that threat comes from vendors, because we have vendors that come in, and sometimes
Correct.
they make a comment that it's not appropriate, and so we also have to add that to the list. It's not just the patients and the co-workers.
Yes, I'm sorry, Johanna. I thought I had referenced that with customers, but thank you. I will change that slide so that it says that. Thanks very much. Okay, well, it's 8:17. I only went 2 minutes over. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to email me, and we can include, any questions and answers when I send out the slides at the end of the week. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.